Greg Dwyer is a former award-winning magician. He's worked backstage for Doug Henning's magic show and was seen by over 6 million people on The Late Show with David Letterman. His main focus these days is speaking and coaching on the topic of focus. His main topic is the importance of focus, and he is here today to share some secrets on how you can grow your coaching business through speaking. You are listening to the Essential Coaching Skills Podcast, a show devoted to uncovering the systems and the secrets that set the best apart, where you learn how to take your coaching clients to the next level, while you grow the coaching practice of your dreams. So sit back and relax, or sit up and get excited. Either way, you might want to pay attention. This could be important. Mr. Dwyer, so good of you to be here with us.
Oh, thank you for the invitation, Doug.
And thanks for putting up with my working on this new platform. Obviously, the kinks have not been quite worked out perfectly yet, but we will keep working on it. And thank you for being so patient with us as we work on this stuff.
This will be fun.
So we've known each other a long time, and you have gone, even while I've known you, through a variety of different sort of definitions of who you are. I didn't know so much about the magician past until I got your introduction to read just now. But tell me a little bit about that. You were a professional magician?
In high school, I was, yeah. My uncle showed me a coin trick, and that was it. So he introduced me to misdirection, and from, I would say, fourth grade all the way up to high school, magic was my focus. I loved it.
Wow.
I've always been on stage, and so I was really focused on, stage work, working backstage for different summer stock productions, and then doing magic. So, yeah.
Neat. And you worked with Doug Henning.
Yeah, his show came in Connecticut, where I live, and I got to work backstage. I was an assistant prop master, so I dealt with some of the illusions backstage, and we had to sign a contract saying we wouldn't talk anymore about, how things were done. But he was an idol for me, so it was absolutely wonderful. Yeah.
So tell us how those things were done. Come on, you're not under contract anymore.
I know, and Doug's dead, so he's not going to come after me.
There you go. So how'd they
not,
do it?
Not you, Doug Henning, right? Exactly.
The other Doug, yes, right, yeah.
The other Doug, yeah.
It would have been really weird if I found about it first time from you that I was passed on.
Yeah, so it was really fun. I mean, there was a time where, in high school where we work in theater, summer stock, and we didn't see the light of day. I mean, it was like 24 hours. We would work on the sets and then set things up, and then the next group would come in, and it was wonderful. I mean, you've been in theater, you've been in music, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also have dabbled with magic as well. But I am curious though, because sometimes when I've been to these magic stores in New York City, and you see the guy demonstrates the trick, it's like, oh my God, how's it do it? And when you find out how they do it, it's like, yeah. I kind of wish I didn't know, because that's it. So then as a magician, it's really kind of like most of the magic is in you convincing the person that this is really cool. This is amazing. It seems like.
Yeah, I mean, really what it comes down to is most people are distracted. And, I have an NLP background. I have a hypnosis background, not as much as you do, but that people, they delete stuff, they generalize stuff, right? So once I made the connection, because when I started in magic, I didn't know about NLP. I didn't really know about hypnosis, though I did a little bit of it. But later on, when I started studying with you in Sleight of Mouth in New York City, and then started reading all the books about NLP, I started to see the connection that the same way a magician fools you, or you're fooled in everyday life, is some of the principles of NLP. What are we calling? We're calling sleight of mouth, right? So there's
that's where that word that came from is from sleight of hand. Robert Dilts named it.
Exactly. And, you just can't follow everything. It's impossible. Yeah. But, where I see the connection is in business and in coaching. Most people, they're just distracted. They don't get anything done. They don't make the phone calls. They don't follow through because, they just get off track. So,
well, in spite of the fact that was a really excellent segue, because you are such a true professional. I'm not going to talk yet about your main topic. You were on the David Letterman show. I want to know about that. Come on.
Yeah. So I was in Ohio. Okay, so I was in Ohio, and I really miss New York. I love New York City. I love Connecticut, and so I see this guy, in the '80s and '90s, Dave Letterman, and he's just a crackpot, crazy kind of guy. And I just related to him, and I said to myself, one day I want to meet this guy. So I'm an ordained clergy for 30 years, and I started watching Dave interact with clergy in the audience. And I don't know if it was, I guess it was like a running gag. So one day I got tickets to the show, and I think it was 1995, and I wore my collar. I had black on with a white tab, and I'm an ordained minister, so it's not a costume. And I was sitting in the front row, and I knew something was up because the producer started pointing the camera my way during the commercials and just setting things up. And I'm like, what's going on here? So during the top 10, David interrupts the top 10 and starts having a conversation with me. And then before you know it, yeah. And I'm a ham. I'm a ham. And before you know it, I'm on stage talking to Dave. And then he and I walk outside to 53rd and Broadway. And I go into Rupert G's restaurant there, his deli. And I'm on the show the whole night. And Kelsey Grammer's there, the Foo Fighters there. And I would say in the next 30 days, I must have gotten, I don't want to say hundreds, but I got faxes. I got packages in the mail. I still run into people today that still remember it. And then after the show was over, I was walking, out of the green room onto 53rd and Broadway, and people thought I was a plant. They thought I was part of the act. But it was my 15 minutes of fame.
Right. It's amazing.
Yeah.
You have this on video?
Yeah, if you go to my YouTube site, Greg Dwyer, and you can look at, I don't know how many videos I have there, but one of the videos, I think it has the highest viewing is towards the bottom, or you can look at it at the top and you can watch it. Yeah, it's crazy. It's nuts.
Well, I promise you I will be watching that today.
Okay. All right. I'll send you the link. Yeah.
However many views, it will be +1.
Okay, cool. Yeah, and subscribe.
All right. So enough fun stuff. Let's get back down to business. So,
okay.
Focus.
All right,
Great.
All right.
What is this? What is this malarkey about focus anyway? What's the big deal?
I think it's everything. And most people, I think, and this is my personal opinion, I think most people are just all over the place. Like when I was on Letterman, 6 million people saw me. On Late Night Tonight, any late night show, any show, even CNN, the viewing is terrible. It's like, I don't know, 2 million viewers now. People have too many choices. They're all over the place. And what happens is I think what happens, I can only speak for myself, is because there's too many choices, we don't get focused on what's really, truly important in our life. And so I see it in business and I see it in personal life. So I have this lecture called The Importance of Focus in a World of Distraction. And it really hits a nerve because people are all over the place.
I'm sorry, my phone's ringing.
Yeah, we should go to commercial because people's attention, man, we probably lost them already. They're like, what?
No, but that's really true. I mean, this thing, this labor-saving device, mine tracks how many minutes I put on per week, and it's always saying, "Are you serious?" My phone says that. Ignore me. It's amazing how much time we spend doing distracted stuff. And sometimes, like I used to travel the country doing hypnosis workshops and weight loss, smoking cessation stuff. And I'd go back to my room after the day was done, 12 o'clock at midnight or whatever, and I'd say, I got to get some sleep. But I'd turn the TV on. And because there were no channel selections or whatever, I would just be, flipping through the channels, trying to find something worthwhile to watch, and I'd more often than not, unfortunately, spend like an hour flipping through the channels trying to find something to watch. I mean, talk about a waste of time.
Yep. Yeah. On average, we pick up our phones and we tap it, click it, and swipe it 2,600 times a day. And so, yeah, it is a waste of time. And really what is monetized is attention today. They want your eyeballs. They want your attention. Social media. Unfortunately, you wake up and you're 60, you wake up and you're 70, and you wonder what have I done in my life, So, yeah, it's kind of crazy.
What's that? 2000 what?
The average person picks up their phone and taps it, swipes it, and clicks it. Wow, you weren't listening? 2,600 times a day. It's insane.
Trying to wrap my mind around that. It's like, holy Toledo.
Well, yeah, you and I work for ourselves, but if you go to work and you're working with colleagues, the average person will waste 12 and a half hours per week on their cell phone doing things that are not productive to the business because they're just not engaged. They don't care. They don't care about their job. And it's 12 and a half hours a week.
Okay. So, Greg, this is, as you know, the Essential Coaching Skills podcast. And on this show, we're looking to find the systems and the secrets that set the best apart. You know, what are the systems and the secrets that make you a great coach?
Well, my forte is business, so I'm passionate about that. So the people that come to me want to improve their business. And so I'm not coaching 24/7, I'm speaking. So that's my main focus. And then when I go out and speak, people are attracted to what I'm saying and they'll say to me, "Hey, do you coach?" So what sets me apart is, first of all, I apply what I've learned, over the years of NLP and hypnosis. I've had coaches, people have helped me with my blind spots, and I apply. And I think a lot of people don't. And I know it's a general statement, but I think a lot of people that are in this profession of coaching and helping, they don't see their own blind spots. I mean, I see it in other people, and then other people point it out in me. But I think it goes back to that old phrase, physician, heal yourself. So I think the first place to start, like, I'm a student of this. I love this. I loved when I went to Sleight of Mouth with you in New York. I love the classes that you teach. I love NLP, but I do apply it to myself. Like, I am really focused on that. Not that I'm perfect. And then, so when I meet people, I help them stay focused to what's really important to them. And it's pretty easy because all you have to do is listen and see where their blind spots are.
Right. And that is one of the amazing things about coaching, the valuable things about being a coach, is that a coach can do that. They can see the blind spots in another person. And even who's a great coach needs a coach, I think.
Yes.
90% of the time, because they're called blind spots for a reason. It's really hard to see your blind spot. It's called the unconscious for a reason. It's like, it's not conscious. It's out of consciousness. So it's good to have somebody who can, bounce things off of and give you some pointers. And, even if the correction is like 1% of a change or 2%.
I have to thank you. And I mean this sincerely. At the beginning of the year, January of this year, 2022, I wrote down in my journal that I wanted to apply Sleight of Mouth, because I took the courses, I have the book, I have the CDs. And so one of my goals this year was to really dig in. And then when I heard that you were, redoing the course in a way that was very unique over months and practice sessions, I jumped in. And then we've had some coaching one-on-one as well. My life, and we're halfway through this year, my life has changed dramatically just because of the influence of Sleight of Mouth and the session that we did together, as far as understanding my market. I've really taken it to the next level. So yeah, I think a coach needs a coach.
Yeah. Well, gosh, thank you. And I will also say that I wish all my clients were like you, because it's, as you said, it's rare that people really truly apply it to themselves.
Right.
It's one thing to say, hey, that was a great seminar, but it's another thing to take what you learned from the seminar and apply it and actually, make yourself better from it. And I also think that that idea of changing even like 1 or 2 degrees can be a big change down the road. And one of the things you were mentioning is that this course we've done it for 6 months. It's a 6-month.
Yeah.
So it's not just like a weekend seminar or, listen to it. Isn't that great? But this is down the road. So you make that change and then you stay with that, 1 degree or 2 degree change. Like Tony Robbins used to use this metaphor. If a plane takes off from New York City and heads due west, but then when it gets over New Jersey, it changes its heading like by 2 degrees.
Right.
It's not that much of a difference when it's over New Jersey, when it's over Pennsylvania, or whatever. But when it gets all the way across to the other coast, one plane lands in San Francisco, the other one lands in Los Angeles.
Right.
Because of that change down the road. So I think that's pertinent to what you've just been saying.
I think it comes down to mastery. I think a lot of people dabble in coaching,
Mm,
in speaking, in life
yeah,
in general, and you use the analogy of playing the piano.
right.
Somebody came up to you and said, Doug, you're amazing. How can I do that? And you said, oh, it's easy. All you have to do is practice 8 hours a day or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't think
No,
most people want to hear that. Most people don't want to do that.
no. Yeah. If I can tell that story, I know this is your podcast, but,
Oh, this is your
all right, right. It's my podcast. So quiet. I want to talk.
Yes, yes.
Um,
Let's hear that story. That was a great story.
So yeah, it was after my senior recital. So yeah, I have a piano over there in the corner. I don't know if you can see it. It's in the dark. But I was a piano major in college, and after my senior recital, one of my mother's friends who had come to the recital came up to me and she said, "Oh my God, that was so beautiful. I would give anything to play like that."
Yeah.
I said, "Oh, well, here's what you do. You get a piano, you get a good teacher, you take lessons every week, and you practice every day for between 4 to 5 hours a day, 8 hours as you get closer to your recital time. But do that for the next 8 years, and you'll be fine. You'll play just like that because that's what I did, and that is exactly what I did. I'd only been playing the piano since I was 13. At that time, I was like 21 when I graduated. So yeah, that's how you do it. It takes practice.
So here's my secret. Are you ready for my secret?
I'm ready for your secret.
Okay. So any given week, I'm talking to 25 to 50 people a week. So 5, 10, 15 people, on a daily basis. So sometimes, like yesterday was 5. The other day it was 10. Sometimes it's 15. So, but it averages about, I would say, 50 people a week. And it's a couple hours a day. And it's phone calls, it's emails, it's postcards. And in the process of just playing those numbers, I get booked on stages, and then I deliver my keynote or my message, and then I meet people, then I build my list. I have an email list that I build. And in the process, organically, people come into my life. Like the client I'm working with right now, I did a speaking gig about a year ago, and our paths crossed. And I, brought her through the process because I think you have to have a process. And then finally sat down and said, look, I think I can help you. And so we're in a 12-week one-on-one coaching session, working on her personal life, but also working on her business life. That's all I do. It's not rocket science. I just think that most people aren't willing to put in the time, Doug.
So that's really interesting. So you spend time every day talking to people, but then you get booked on stage. When you do the talk, how many talks are you doing, like in a month, or how many talks are you doing?
I'd say I'm booked up until January. So here it is, July. I'm usually doing about 4 to 6 speaking events per month. Like in the month of September, I'm in Albany, Syracuse, Buffalo, upstate New York for a full week, back to back.
Wow.
October is probably booked right now. October is probably booked about 6. I started booking for January this week. And I'll tell you what switched. What switched was my mindset, because working with you on Sleight of Mouth and also having one-on-one with you, I thought to myself, why not? And so I have these coins. I don't know if you can see them, but I have these coins, and I just stack them next to my desk. And then I move them from the left side to the right side as I talk to people. And I'm just kind of playing it as a game, if that makes any sense. In NLP, we call it reframing.
I have no idea what you're talking about. You're distracting yourself. You're not focused. You're playing with coins while you're talking to people. What are you talking about?
I'm realizing that in my mind, this, what stopped me in the past is, I think, what stops most people. What are people going to think of me? Or how am I going to get up on stage and talk about my coaching business or whatever? And all of that stuff is the minutia that holds us back. So I've gamified the whole thing, and I've kind of really looked back at this and realized the whole thing's a game. Like, what does it really matter? And it's kind of made it very fun for me. So I have a stack of these dollars. They're silver dollars. And I have them on the left side of my computer next to my phone. And when I'm on the phone with somebody, I pick up the silver dollar and I move it from this side to that side. At the end of the day, I know exactly how many people I talk to.
Okay.
And
so
go ahead.
Okay. Good. I was just saying, so it's a way of keeping track of how many people you call.
Yeah, but it's beautiful in the sense that the other day I just booked a $1,200 speaking coaching program for some people. And I looked at my numbers and I said, okay, let's get this straight. I talked to 30 people this week and I just closed a $1,200 program. And who knows what's going to come out of that, because, out of that might come more coaching. And I thought to myself, okay, out of 30 people, I got some yeses and some nos and some maybes. Who cares? And out of it, I just closed $1,200. The week before that, I closed $1,500. And I thought, this is fun. This is better than going to Mohegan Sun. Mohegan Sun in Connecticut. Why go to Mohegan Sun when they can pick up the phone, send out emails, and then send out postcards and just connect with people? I don't know. That's my secret. I don't think it's a big secret.
Okay. So tell us about this importance of focus thing. How are you finding that people are give us the sort of gist of your talk. How do we maintain our focus in this world of distractions?
When I started reading about this and I started making the connections with NLP and hypnosis and magic and all of this, I read all the books on distraction and focus, how to stay focused in business, how to stay focused in life. And there were two common denominators that people were saying over and over again. Number one, you have to be disciplined. All right. And number two, you have to use your willpower. I feel that that's good, but I don't think it's great. And I kind of feel that it's like lighter fluid, that, discipline's good and willpower is good, but they don't last. Mm. So what I realized from my magic background is that discipline has no advantage, and neither does willpower when it comes to distracting an audience. And so what I do is I come out and I tell the story about how I met misdirection through my uncle, who showed me a coin trick. Misdirection, Misdirection. Yeah, exactly. And so she taught me distraction, and she taught me how not to be shy. And I tell this story how people who think that discipline is the answer or the key to focus are going to fail, most likely, or even willpower. And then what I do is I set up, those stories, and then I reveal what the secret is. The key to focus is reflection, because when you reflect, you connect with what is most important to you. And the secret to my talk is that importance directs focus. So my whole talk, Doug, can be boiled down to 3 words. Importance directs focus. And then I end with the coin trick. And then I say to them, don't be amazed where the coin went, but be amazed that we're here together and I'm sharing with you what's important to me. And then I close with asking them a question. What's important to you? Focus on that. So it's really cool. I've been working on it for years. I've been polishing it like a diamond.
Really?
Yeah. Because
how many times have you delivered that talk?
I don't know the numbers, but COVID kind of put me into a holding pattern and put me onto Zoom, and the Zoom talk's a little different. But I would say probably between 100 and 150 so far.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
And every time you go out, I review it, I look at it, I polish it, I say, this is what I want to add, this is what I want to take out. So, yeah.
Right. No, that's really great. Like you, I've been on the circuit doing kind of sort of the same thing over and over again. The aforementioned hypnosis for weight loss and smoking cessation seminars through the John Morgan Seminars company. Mm-hmm. They just sent me on the road, 3-4 times a week. Mostly in September, October, and then after Christmas, January, February, March, we'd have our big times. And the other times we didn't really go out at all. But during those months, I was out on the road, and I was doing the same basic seminar every night, twice a night, once for smokers, once for weight loss, one for smokers, one in a different city. And so, you get good at it. There's nothing like practice. Going back to piano practice, there's nothing like practice to do things. Tony Robbins used to talk about how he used to, figured this is the road. Speaking is the road to success for him. So he went out and said he would deliver a talk to 2 people. Get 2 people. Like, let me give you this talk, and because he just did it over and over again. Yeah. By the time he had a larger audience, he was darn good at doing it. Right. So there's a lot of value in focusing on what's important to you, and then finding a way to practice those things that you have to offer in that realm that's important to you.
Yeah, and I really think that most people aren't willing to go through the process, because when I started in 2016. What happened was I was at a church on Long Island, And someone said to me, "Oh, I hear you do magic." And I thought, yeah, I used to do it. I'm kind of a hobbyist now. But I found a magic shop on East Meadow, and I kind of got more engaged with it again. And so on Easter Sunday, I walked out and I did a children's sermon. And in the process of doing a children's sermon, I used a metaphor, which was a torn and restored newspaper. And somebody said, "Wow." I mean, I literally could hear the air go out of the room, because I took this newspaper, I ripped it up, and then I folded it, I flipped it. It's an old Doug Henning effect they used to do. And you could hear the air go out of the room. I mean, they didn't expect that from a minister. And then that year, somebody asked me to do a speech for the Ladies Guild. So I put together this thing called The Magic of Communication. It was about an hour with about 12 magic tricks. And it was good. It was good. But over the years, I took out most of the magic and I redefined the focus to the importance of focus. And I hired a coach. I had one coach that I paid $2,500 for 5 hours, who looked at my video, looked at my syntax of my speech, and ripped it apart, which was painful. So I think most people don't want to go through the process because they don't want to look bad. If I look back to what I did in 2016 and what I'm doing now, it's not the same at all. And 5 years from now, what I'm doing now will probably be refined, because I will grow and I will be refined. But I think most people aren't willing to go through that process.
Right. Right. So this is great, Greg, because we were really both hitting on the two aspects of the reason for this podcast, the essential coaching skills, because there's two parts, at least two parts, to being a successful coach. One is to be darn good at your craft of coaching.
Yep.
To be able to do like what that aforementioned $2,500 guy did for you in 5 hours or whatever it was.
Right.
To have the skill set that good to be able to say, I'm worth $2,500 for 4 hours of my time or whatever it was.
Right.
And then to do it, to have that ability to coach that intensely, even if it's over 6 months or whatever, but to be able to have the skill sets as a coach to do that. And one must also be able to do what you're doing, which is spend a lot of time every day with the coin on one side and move it to the other side of making the calls, of doing the business of business,
right,
to get the gigs where you can go out and deliver that magic talk, but you got to do the work to get the gigs. And, so it's both those things. We have to wear at least two hats as coaching, as solopreneurs, to be able to, have a successful business as a coach.
You nailed it. I was listening to Darren Brown. Do you know this guy in the UK? He's a mentor.
Well, I don't know personally, but yeah, I definitely know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. So he came to New York a couple years ago off Broadway. And then I think he was on Broadway for a couple, months. But anyway, I listened to a lecture, and the guy that was asking him questions say, "What is your success? Like, what is the key to your success?" So here we are focusing, boiling this down. And he goes, it's really simple. And he says, on one hand, you have to be really good at what you do. So whatever you're doing, if you're a coach, you're a speaker, it doesn't matter. You really have to be excellent. And number two, you have to be really excellent at marketing. So about 10, 15 minutes goes by, and the guy circles back and asks him another question. And he goes, you really have to be good at what you do. Like, you have to be an expert, and you really have to be an expert at marketing and sales. Doug, I think most people fail. Either they're really good at what they do and nobody knows about them, or they're really good at marketing and they don't do self-reflection.
Right.
You need to have both.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And that is kind of the thing that is interesting as a solopreneur. I sort of became one by default. I just loved the idea, but from the beginning, even as a musician, I was a solopreneur. I was getting gigs and I was trying to get gigs, and it seemed like more than half the time was spent getting the gig.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's show business, but most of my time is business. Here's another secret. I would give this, well, I don't want to say this. Maybe you can edit this out, but I would give the speech for free. I would give the speech for free. So when I look at when they pay me $5,000 or $2,500 or whatever they're paying me, it's really all this work. It's the phone calls, it's the travel. But as far as the speak and being on stage, I would never tell anybody this, but I would do that for free.
That's great.
Yeah. So, yeah.
And then there's other things too. I mean, like, just to use the analogy of show business, you said I think before we started the podcast that you did summer stock.
Yes, I love summer stock. Yeah, when I was a
And there were
teenager.
times that you didn't even see the light of day. I mean, you were just in there, like, before the shows, you were building the sets and you were cleaning the theater. You're just like nonstop business of doing the business. So it's a lot like that as well. We are, I'm taking courses in how to do marketing. I'm hiring virtual assistants, in different parts of the world. I'm just, it's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes to do these things. And you have to be willing to do that, and you have to find out how to do that well. The better that you can do that, the more you can get your message out, the better you are at delivering the message. People will want to do that, so they'll answer the calls when you do it. So it does build on that. So what is would you say the first thing a person needs to do to be able to, you said you spend a lot of times making these calls. Who are you calling? How do you know how to call them? Who's going to be hiring you to give these talks? How do you do that? How do you do this marketing thing you do?
Well, the first place I started was at this church, right? That was the first place. That was 2016. But
so
then
when you were a minister?
Yeah, I'm still a minister. So I
mean,
I
that's what you're doing at the church.
Yeah, that was my first exposure. That was 2016. I mean, they paid me, but it wasn't about the money. It was just really getting out there and kind of thinking out loud and putting together this thing, which was called in the day the magic of communication. But when I left that church, my next focus were libraries. And here's the reason. Libraries need a program to draw people. They have community service outreach. They want to bring, people into their library. So I took a list. I didn't buy the list. I just went online. I got all of Connecticut, all of New York, Massachusetts, uploaded that into a database, into a CRM. And I didn't want to make mistakes in front of Staples. I didn't want to make mistakes in front of Procter and Gamble. I didn't want to make mistakes in front of these big companies because I was still working out my material. So what I would do is I would just call the libraries, ask for the person that was involved with adult programming and say, look, this is what I'm doing. Right now, if you go into Google and you type in Greg Dwyer Library, you'll see where I was the last 5 years. And it gives credibility to folks. So that's where I kind of cut my teeth. But right now I'm working with brokers of real estate. Like we talked about real estate in slight amount. Brokers need people who are motivated and focused, who are on their team, whether they're agents or whatever they're called. And so right now that's my market. So I think you have to figure out your message if you're a coach, health coach, business coach, whatever you're doing, but you have to figure out who would want to hear your message. I heard this from a coach of mine. He said, you can't boil the ocean. And that's what I tried to do at the beginning. I tried to reach everybody with my message. And that's, I think, grandiose thinking or just psychotic because you can't do it. You don't have enough time. So right now I'm just focused on real estate people, brokers in particular. So it's easy to find a list. You just call them up.
Cool.
Yeah.
So this tour you're doing through New York, Albany, Syracuse, Buffalo, those are all different real estate brokerage houses?
No, here's the delay. There's a delay, right? I started last June, which is 2021, calling libraries, right? So I have a list of 1,500. No, is it 1,500? No, I think it's like 3,000 libraries. I forget the number off the top of my head. But the work that I'm doing now, right? Like the book, I have a booking next week and I have a couple next month coming up as well. All of that was done based on June, July, and August of last year.
Huh.
So there's a delay. So when I'm booking real estate, that's not going to show up until next year, March, April, and May. So that's another thing that I think most people don't recognize is that once you focus on something, there's an aspect of delay. You don't see immediate results. And that's why most people quit.
That's really good. That's really good. I think we could spend the next few minutes just reiterating that. That's very important, Greg. That's a really good point because, and Tony Robbins, I don't like to quote him too much, but he was a big influence and we both have this common background. We both have been to his seminars. Used to say that God's delays are not God's denials.
Right.
It just keep going. It's if you're focused on it, if that's the outcome you've set, if you have the proper steps, sequenced to go there, if you've gone through the four keys to a well-formed outcome and that sort of thing, that from a previous podcast. And
Yeah, yeah.
then you will get there, but it may not be tomorrow, it may not be the day after that. But God's delays are not God's denials, so keep going. As
Right.
Dan Millman would say, and feel free to quote him, you can quit as often as you want, but keep your feet moving.
And it's also time management. You just did a podcast on time management. I think
Yeah.
people need to be able to focus their time, whether they still have a day job, but you have to be able to say, this is a section of my life between 3 and 4. I'm going to make phone calls, or I'm going to go, speak at the Rotary, or you have to be really focused on how you spend your time.
Right.
And the other thing I would say is be careful who you listen to.
Uh-huh.
Years ago, I was down in Florida and I was at a restaurant and I overheard someone talk about NLP. Richard Bandler came up and I'm like, what? So I heard this conversation. I said, excuse me, what are you talking about, NLP? And they said, yeah. They said, Richard Bandler's in town. I said, no way. Now, I was in town for a business conference. So I went to that conference the next day as a guest, invited myself in, asked them if I could be there for maybe an hour. And they gave me like an hour and a half. People paid thousands of dollars to be there. And I was able to sit in for free for an hour. And after the break, I went up to Richard and I said, Richard, I know you don't know me, but I live in Connecticut, New York area. I would love to train with somebody. Who could I train with? And they said, oh, Doug O'Brien. And I went, Doug O'Brien? They said, yeah, Doug O'Brien. And that's how our connection met. Over the period of my life working in business, I've listened to coaches or marketing people who tell you one thing and it doesn't work for you. You have to be really careful that the person that you're with or you're getting advice from, number one, you're paying them because that's important. And number two, that they have your best interest in mind. They're sincere and that it's going to work for you. Because I've had people tell me things and I go, that does not work for me. And now what you've taught me has worked for me. But my point is, you really have to be careful who you get your coaching from. You got to make sure they're doing their walk. Like everything I'm sharing with you today, it's not something I've read out of a book. This is what I do. Like this is my life,
Yeah. That's great. That's fantastic. Gosh, Greg, no wonder you're so good at speaking. You're a good speaker. So do you do any ministry anymore? You're still ordained. Do you still
I'm
work in the
still
church?
ordained. In this August will be 30 years. And, I tell you, I started in Cleveland, Ohio. You know how we talk about taking a person from Cleveland and moving them?
Yes, I do.
So, yeah. So I started in Cleveland. And when I first heard about marketing and being an entrepreneur, my first reaction was, I don't want anything to do with marketing. I don't want anything to do with sales. My first sales call, I was shaking. I was just beyond, I couldn't explain how nervous I was. So in the process of listening to tapes and books, I went through the process over the last 20 years to be where I am today. And I'm still a minister. And as luck would have it, I'm a part-time minister. So I work at a church on the weekends. And then I also pursue doing what we're talking about now, which is speaking. So I'm blessed.
I'm not that versed in being a minister, but don't all ministers work on weekends? Isn't that like when you work?
Most ministers are really working overtime. You wouldn't believe there's meetings to go to. There's, people to visit. It's more than a full-time job. A lot of times people make jokes and say, a minister only works on one day a week. But believe it or not, and I don't know why, I really think it's grace. If you listen to Tony, and I don't want to quote him too much, but he does talk about the fact that, you do all the work that you do, but in the end, there is grace, there is providence, or we could call it even luck. So what happened a couple of years ago is I found a position where they said, we can only have you part-time. And I said, that's perfect. I says, I don't want to be at the church 60 hours a week. I just don't. So I'm still a minister, but I'm also focusing on speaking. And I also take people on retreats as well, which is another story. We can do a podcast about that maybe.
Right. I remember that you used to take people to the Holy Land and do a little tour. That's so cool. I've always wanted to go there, actually, just to see it, just to, say, oh, this is where it happened.
And the focus has shifted. Like I started focusing on bringing Christians to these holy sites. Now what I'm doing is I'm taking people on retreats so that they can get away from their patterns and go to a place. Like we have a trip coming up next year in March to Ireland, to Dublin. Yeah. So we take people out of their regular environment, say, hey, look, now that you're in Dublin, let's go get a beer, but let's also, or Guinness, and then let's also talk about your life. So, yeah.
In fairness, in Ireland, that is holy water. So.
Yes, that's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. We take water and then we go like this and it turns dark black. A Guinness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you ever been
to Ireland?
Yeah.
Well, yes and no. I've been there as an extended layover on a trip to Leeds, I think. So I've been there, and I went to a pub. I was there for about 6 hours, but I haven't really visited yet.
The people are
not
yet. They're delightful. I mean, they're so funny, and you ask somebody for directions, and 25 minutes later, by the way, how are we doing for time?
Oh, just fine, just fine.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we got plenty of time. Okay. We got all day, Greg, for you.
I got to make my phone calls, Doug.
Oh yeah. This is you're not getting paid for this.
That's right.
So yeah, let's go back to the idea of applications of focus for the individuals who are listening to this. So how does a person start? It's one thing to say, this is important to me, and I want to focus on that. But let's just say I have a job, not where I'm a public speaker. Like, being a minister, it's kind of nice that you are being paid as a minister to do public speaking. So you get to practice, even though it may not be about focus, you still are practicing talking to an audience of people. Let's just say a person has a job, they're an accountant.
Right.
Just say, and they have a dream of being a coach, hypothetically speaking. So they listen to a talk by Greg Dwyer, and it's like, wow, yeah, I should really focus on what's important to me. And they think to themselves, well, what's important to me is freedom, and accounting just doesn't do it for me as far as freedom. So I want to be a coach that focuses on freedom. Let me go out and be a coach now. I'll quit my accounting job and hang out my shingle. I went to coaching school, got my certificate as a coach. How do you turn that corner? How do you get going? How do you build your business?
I think you do it slowly. There are some people that say you just cut off all ties and quit your job and do it. I think that's a lot of stress. What I did is I did it slowly over time and just followed the process. So I was a full-time minister at one time. So I really couldn't be seen giving speeches or really taking people on too many trips, right? Because when you're working for a church, you're working for hundreds of people. Like my last, my last position in New York, we had 300 people on Sunday morning. So my advice is to take it slow. Why jump out of something into something else, especially if you have a mortgage or if you have family and you have all of these liabilities. So, baby steps is what I would say. I would say the other thing is how you start your day is really important. Like every single day I have a ritual. I listen to music. I meditate. I focus. I look at my day planner. I look at my journal. That's another thing. Started in 2009. It was Jack Canfield that I ran across many, many years ago. And I started with his journaling. So you write down 5 things a day that you're grateful for. And I think if you start your day off really positive in a ritual that gets you focused, even if you have to go to a job, at the end of the day, you write down what you're grateful for. And then you take baby steps towards what you want. Like, in other words, if you're an accountant or you're a nurse and you love it or hate it, but you want to do coaching, you can start off taking a coaching class, and then you could work on the weekends. You could burn, the midnight hour, focusing on how to get clients through social media. So you could do both. That would be my advice. I would never tell someone to quit their job and go into coaching full time. Would you say that's the right way to go? What would you say on that?
I would say absolutely not. I agree with you 100%.
Okay.
That it's rare, almost like maybe never, that a person would succeed in doing that. I've had people take my NLP courses or my hypnosis courses or whatever and get certified as a NLP practitioner, get certified as a hypnotist, and say, okay, I'm done. Legal secretary, don't want to do that anymore. Quit. And then like, whoa, where are all the people?
Right.
Why is practice?
Yeah. Right. And I know people that have spouses, in other words, there's two incomes. So the spouse says to the other spouse, hey, listen, you want to pursue your goal of being a hypnotist or a coach, fine. But I've been to what is it, National Guild of Hypnotists, and I've been to HypnoThoughts, and I know you've been there as well. There are a lot of people, and I guess it's the 80-20 rule, right? I saw the same thing in the magic world. You have a lot of people at the bottom not making anything. You have some people in the middle making something, but not enough to support themselves. And then you got, the people at the top, like you and me, but people who are really rocking it. So yeah, I think you got to be careful. That's my advice. Good.
I love it. That's great advice. Yeah. And it is also the thing that you said about, might be needing to burn the midnight oil sometimes. I am a firm believer in having a good work life and home life balance. And there are times when it isn't balanced at all, because you got to sometimes put in the extra effort in order to get things going so that eventually you can have a good work home life balance.
I had a coach that said to me, we're actually business partners. He had a day planner, and I worked with him putting together a course. This was many, many years ago when I was in direct sales. And he said to me, Greg, I'm going to give you the key to success. All you have to do is work a half a day. And I said, well, that's great. And he goes, yeah, that's 12 hours, my friend. And I was like, oh my gosh, I never thought of it that way. But I think when you're passionate about what you do, I don't think you don't look at what you do as work, do you, Doug? I don't.
Well, there are things that if you gave me the choice to say, hey, do you want to, go play golf on some beautiful course in Ireland, or do you want to sit here and move coins from one side of the desk to the other while you call, real estate agents? It's like, well, okay, let's go golf. I'd be flying to Ireland to play that golf match, even though I play golf like once every 5 years. But still, I would go. So yes, there's truth to certainly the idea that what we do, we love to do.
Right.
And that comes back to the topic of your talk, focus on what's important to you, because the old saying that if you're doing what you love, then you're not working.
Well, you know what threw me off at the beginning, and I love this guy, was Jim Rohn. And Jim Rohn obviously taught Tony. But Jim Rohn had a saying that said, daily disciplines are errors in judgment. And when I started 20 years ago, I thought, okay, daily disciplines are errors in judgment. So I got to be really, really disciplined. I got to tell you, Doug, it didn't work for me. I hate discipline. I don't like it. And what I thought when I went through the process of connecting magic and NLP and all of this is, it's not discipline. It's reconditioning the subconscious mind in such a way that your old habits become new habits and it becomes automatic. Does that make sense? That has to make sense.
Yes, it totally makes sense. That is the subject of my book, Succeed with Ease.
I heard the rumor. Is it true? I heard the rumor for some of our colleagues that you're coming out with a new book, but I didn't know it was true. That's amazing. When's it
so the whole idea is you build new habits. And, it's interesting, you've heard of the 12 disciples, right?
But don't put me on the spot and have me name them, because
okay.
I know there was a Judas in there.
And Blitzen and Comet.
No, that's another story. You're going to hell, Doug. You're going to hell. Just remember that.
A lot of good company down there. Anyway, so sorry about that.
No, that's funny. So the new book, I can't wait. When's it coming out?
Wait. But the discipline, the idea of disciples and discipline comes from the same root. They weren't forced. They weren't forced to following Jesus. They wanted to, And your morning rituals could say that's a discipline. You could say, I have a discipline of every morning I get up, I write in my gratitude journal. That is a discipline. Practicing the piano 7-8 hours a day is a discipline. But nobody was forcing me to do that. I mean, sort of they were, but nobody was really, I did, teachers that said, it's not very good. So, so it was that. But I also loved it. Right.
Yes. Yeah.
And so it is a discipline. There are days when I don't get out of bed and say, I'd rather go play golf. Got to do that, and I do those things that are on my to-do list and et cetera.
Right.
So it's again a little bit of a balance. I think you're right, though. You find those things that you, in a sense, must do to
Right.
build your business, and then find a way to love that.
Yes.
Find a way to say, this is my choice, and I love, and what is it about that's great? And asking yourself better questions. What's great about this?
Right.
What's beautiful about this?
Yeah, and it's not that I'm against discipline and willpower. I think they're good, and I do use them. It's just that I really think it comes down to identity and what you really are passionate about. Like we talk about logical levels, and you know more about this than I do, but identity dictates everything. Goes back to Maxwell Maltz, cybernetics.
Yes.
I really think that who you are and who you think you are is going to dictate. Like there was a mentor of mine, his name was Brian Clemmer, that died a few years ago. And he wrote a book called If How-Tos Were Enough, Everybody Would Be Rich, Happy, and Skinny. And his whole premise was that the how-to or the discipline of doing something is never going to help you, because what's really controlling you is your subconscious mind. That's another reason why I love hypnosis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Hey, Greg, we are kind of running out of time. This is so fun. I'm having such a good time talking.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
If a person does want to get hold of you, how do they do that?
The best way, I have a bunch of websites, but the best way, the easiest way is my name, which is Gregory. So it's Gregory, Dwyer, spelled D as in diamond, W as in wealth, Y as in young, ER.net. It's just a one page, but you can click on that. I have a quiz there at GregoryDwyer.net. It's a 5-second quiz to ask you to reflect on where you are focused or not focused. And you'll get immediate results, because we don't want you distracted.
A 5-second
quiz. It's 5 questions. It's really quick. It's not long. And, so yeah, just GregoryDwyer.net.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, my friend, for being here.
Oh, thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. I'm so glad that our paths crossed.
Indeed. This has been the Essential Coaching Skills Podcast. Thank you for being here. It's a pleasure seeing you again. Hope to see you again real soon. Come back next week when we have another gripping and exciting episode of the Essential Coaching Skills Podcast. And if you want to, you can find out more about us, each and every one of us, at essentialcoachingskills.com. Thanks.